More, and more content. Hundreds of thousands of square miles of open worlds with unique stories and encounters. A place where you'll become the master of your and every NPC's destiny. Or not quite. Open world games have taken the game industry by storm. Developers are creating increasingly massive virtual worlds for you to explore. Let's take a look at open world settings, from endless metropolises to fantastical realms. They're often praised for their massive size and complexity, making us feel like we have complete freedom. We're enticed with promises of shaping the narrative, altering the course of events, and making consequential choices that have a lasting impact. But are these claims nothing more than an illusion? In reality, there's a carefully planned structure that guides everything we do. Game designers put a lot of effort into crafting quests, encounters, and environments to create a specific experience. Take, for example, the illusion of choice. Many open-world games present players with decisions that seem to carry weight and consequences. However, more often than not, these choices funnel us back onto the predetermined path, ensuring that the mission storyline remains intact. Whether we choose option A or option B, the narrative ultimately converges towards the same outcome. To maintain this delicate balance between freedom and control, game designers employ various techniques. One such technique is the illusion of a branching narrative. By presenting players with multiple dialogue options or moral dilemmas, the game creates the illusion of choice, even though the overall story remains unchanged. Behind the scenes, developers have mapped out all possible narrative paths, accounting for every decision a player might take. They anticipate our choices and cleverly direct us towards predefined outcomes, ensuring the story's cohesion and desired emotional impact. Similarly, in Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, we're given the impression that our choices significantly impact the narrative. While that is true for the majority of the game, where choices not only affect the ending of the game, but also chapters can feel as long and emotionally impactful as entire other games. To showcase this method, the decision you make early in the game can be recognized by the NPCs in a completely different questline, location, and time. A little after the beginning, you're faced with the option to fight and kill some local tyrants drinking in an inn. The innkeeper asks you not to create any trouble. If you chose to battle them, the owner would get mad. Fast forward 20 plus hours in the game, during a really emotional cinematic of the main questline, the innkeeper recognizes you from the crowd and makes a public statement about the slaughtering Geralt did in her establishment, making you reminiscent about your decisions. Did the choice you make have an important impact on the story? But upon closer inspection, we discover that the outcomes are predetermined. It's a testament to the designer's ability to manipulate our perception of free will while maintaining their vision of the game's story. In that case, the story didn't really change, but the designer's ability to affect your emotions made you question your morality. These are all really powerful emotions and questions. While you're thinking about all of that, the designers distract you from the real questions. Did that choice change the whole narrative? Short answer, no. See, this method works really well in story-driven games, mainly because they're really cheap to add. It's not always easy, but quests and narrative designers make sure to add them at the perfect time. The Witcher 3 is full of memorable main and side quests. In this quest, you encounter the NPC right after the start of the game, which is almost impossible to skip. Later, you get to see the conclusion of that action in the main story quest, which is yet again hard to miss. Both times are selected masterfully because you're at the peak of your emotional response, mainly from going through the other quests. The emotional leverage has you in its grasp. Another tool at the designer's disposal is the dynamic world system. Open-world games often feature vibrant ecosystems where AI-controlled characters and events react to our actions. It creates an illusion of a living, breathing world that responds to our choices. But in reality, these systems are carefully scripted to maintain a delicate balance. If we choose to eliminate a faction or save a town from destruction, the game adjusts its world state accordingly. It's a delicate dance of interactivity and control that maintains constructed narrative structure. Starfield, a pinnacle of open-world gaming, invites us to explore a vast cosmos of possibilities. With thousands of planets to explore, we expect unparalleled freedom and control. Memorable encounters full of mysterious and marvelous questlines. However, beneath the surface, a carefully designed framework challenges our sense of player autonomy. Realistically, if designers had to go in and create every nook and cranny of these planets, it would take years to finish a single one of them. So the team took the procedural approach. The art and technical team designed and built modular assets. These are 3D models that are segmented so that they could be combined in numerous unique ways. Similar to how Skyrim was created, they use these modular assets and build content with them. In Starfield, they build thousands of planets. So to make these planets real, they also need to add life and motivate the player to explore them. Adding civilizations on every planet is not performant nor viable for the devs. Therefore, similar to the assets, the team will create modular narrative content that could be explored over and over again. With some slight changes, the player can have a unique experience of their own. When it comes to systemic games, the player can complete missions in more than one way. Games that fall into that genre are called immersive sims. They reward players' agency, which is a word for the player's ability to affect the game world, mechanics, and/or narrative. The illusion of a choice has a direct relationship with players' agency. By giving players control over parts that are not too important, let's say way of defeating an enemy, how that is done is not essential for the story, as much as if it is successful or not. While the details of how that goal is achieved, a character build, the paths players took in the level, and the plans they made give players pleasure that their choices are meaningful. Ultimately, it doesn't affect the big picture. The battle areas are carefully built so that they can accommodate multiple playstyles. The whole idea is that the levels have a structure, which is the important part. Designers care about and try to control and balance. These levels are then procedurally placed on the planets. Each planet offers unique landscapes, cultures, and stories. But we soon realize that the game's designers have carefully curated our experience, guiding us towards specific locations to ensure a cohesive narrative and an engaging adventure. And a cohesive narrative comes from structure. The illusion of choice is intricately woven into Starfield's fabric. We encounter critical decisions with branching paths, dialogue options, and moral dilemmas that seem significant. Yet beneath this illusion, the game cleverly brings our choices back to a predetermined narrative track. Developers maintain the illusion of agency through accurate planning. They anticipate various player decisions and craft the game to adapt and respond, allowing us to feel a sense of influence while preserving the integrity of the overall story. It's important to think of the narrative in different sizes, macro and micro, where there's a large narrative structure and smaller acts to keep us engaged. Starfield's dynamic world system further enhances the illusion of choice. AI-controlled characters and events react to our actions, creating a living, breathing universe. However, behind the scenes, these systems are carefully scripted, ensuring our choices have tangible but limited consequences with predetermined outcomes. This makes the world immersive and believable, which gives you gratification but takes your attention from the narrative structure. Whether we save a faction, shape a planet's destiny, or alter the balance of power, the game adjusts within the developer's set limits. It's a delicate dance of interactivity and control that maintains the game's narrative coherence. Let's now examine specific instances in Starfield that demonstrate the illusion of choice. We may face heart-wrenching decisions that seem to affect countless lives. However, regardless of our chosen path, the ultimate outcome remains unaffected. This showcases the developer's ability to guide our perception of free will while preserving the underlying story structure. This methodology can also be applied to level design. In The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, the team did too good of a job guiding the player from one sky tower to the other. The towers were connected by roads, and the players followed the paths righteously. This created a bummer. The players missed too much content and played in the exact same order as everybody else. The game is supposed to focus on your sense of exploration, and it failed at that point. To tackle this, the designers modified the landscape to create suspense and reward you for exploring. Important landmarks were hidden from players' sight and were partly teased, so the players were encouraged to move towards the points of interest. While doing so, they stumble upon other engaging encounters or content. After making those changes, the studio analysed heat maps of the map, and now the player's movement looked more balanced throughout the world. Everybody who has played Zelda Breath of the Wild will tell you that the sense of freedom is incomparable to other games. Little do they know that the designers know how to guide them to the next encounter or landmark at any point in the game. Achieving structure in an open-world game where players can roam unattended is quite a difficult task. If the players are left aimless, they could get bored and/or annoyed. Starfield and the Witcher series exemplify how game designers craft vast, immersive experiences while subtly guiding us along their intended paths. Remember, the illusion of a choice isn't bad, it just shifts your perspective from the story structure to more moment-to-moment agency. Imagine if you didn't have an illusion of a choice, and every time the game took control, it was a little bit too drastic. If you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll appreciate our next one. YouTube has selected it specifically for you. Enjoy!